So I work for Sourcegraph, and since we started out, we went through different architectures as we had to scale due to requirements. And I wanted to try and see if I can squeeze our architecture where we are today into 7 minutes. So just to give a bit of context, Sourcegraph is a code search, code review, and analysis tool that aims to help developers' lives by making tedious tasks more easier by helping you navigate code and comprehend change sets and so on. You can check it out to get a better understanding at sourcegraph.com. So most of our architecture revolves around the API client. Everything that uses any data that we have stored in Sourcegraph or queries our data stores uses our API. Some API consumers could be our application, which is our website, sourcegraph.com. Some React.js UI components can access our API directly. There's also our workers. Basically, what they do is they use the API to upload data about your code as a result of analysis. I don't really have time to go into that, but that's one other API consumer. There's our CLI, and there's our users, which can also build based on our API. Our API is open source at the URL on the screen. And I'll try to go a bit through the layers of how everything connects in our code base. So the topmost layer is the client, which is part of the Go Sourcegraph repository, which you've previously seen. I'll just use, we have a microservices architecture, and this is one of our services, a simpler one, a repo tree client. What this basically does is you can request a tree or a blob from a repository, and it has two methods, get or search. It's just an interface which has different implementations based on whether you want to call into the API via HTTP or gRPC. An example of a gRPC client implementation is on the screen. It's pretty straightforward. It takes a set of options, and it invokes that services method on the server. On the server side, this would be a handler that would receive that request from the client. You may notice that the signature of the function looks a bit weird with the empty interface there, but that's just because this is a predefined type in the gRPC package. It's sort of like HTTP handler func, so it has to have that signature. So when the client calls into the server, this method will pick it up and will call the respective service method. Then further on the server, we have to have the actual service that handles the request, and we also need to hook up that service to respond to that request. So basically connecting the client, the handler, and the service. As you can see, the repo tree server looks kind of like the client. It's pretty much the same interface. And at the bottom is a very simple example that shows how we initialize a new server, a new repo tree service, which is an implementation of the repo tree server interface. And then we hook it up using a register service method. You can see at the bottommost line, the second param is the service, and then we define the service by name, and we pass it a type, which that's how it works through reflection. And then we bind each method to its handler. One other part, kind of essential, of the whole architecture is our tests. This is the way we mock at Sourcegraph. This structure implements the repo tree server, and at the same time, it has fields which allow you to configure the behavior of the methods that are attached to the structure. We found this to work really well because it's very flexible. But looking at all of this code, you can see that there is a lot of repetition. So the interfaces look very similar. The method names are similar. And if you imagine a code base where you have 40 of these services and you just want to add one single method to one service, you have to go and add it in the client, in the server, in the mocks. And if you have to change an argument, again, it's a very tedious process. You have to do all of that again. So if you would look at all the code that I've shown so far as a data structure, you would see that there is a pattern. So what we did, some people in the audience might have noticed based on their experience with gRPC. This is all the code that we run to generate everything you've seen so far in the previous slides. So all it takes is 8 lines of protobuf code. You can generate a gRPC API client, a server handler, a service interface, endpoints, test mocks, and tracing middleware, which give you information about how long it took to access a service and process the request. It's that easy. We are launching next week a hosted instance of Sourcegraph, which you can try out today if you go to the URL on the screen. In the bottom, there are instructions. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to try out. And if you want to come up to me, I'll be happy to run you through it. And you can try it out on your own code. Well, these things go faster than you plan, usually. Thank you very much. That's it.